The M15 bus lurched through evening traffic on First Avenue, its brakes hissing at every other block like an exhausted animal. I gripped the yellow pole near the rear exit, my knuckles white against the chipped paint, trying to keep my balance as the driver took another aggressive turn. My phone buzzed for the 8th time in 10 minutes. I didn't need to look at the screen to know who it was. The same person who'd been calling since I left the courthouse 3 hours ago. The same person whose restraining order I just filed. The same person who didn't understand that no was a complete sentence. I pressed the power button until the screen went dark. The silence felt like a small victory, even though I knew it was temporary. Marcus didn't accept defeat. He never had. That's what made him so successful in commercial real estate and so terrifying as an ex-boyfriend. The bus was packed with the usual evening crowd. Tired construction workers with paint-stained jeans, mothers juggling grocery bags, and restless children, students with headphones blocking out the world. I'd chosen public transportation deliberately. Marcus knew my car. He knew my routes, but he wouldn't expect me on a city bus at rush hour, blending into the anonymous masses. The fluorescent lights flickered as we passed under the scaffolding at 34th Street. I caught my reflection in the grimy window. I looked exhausted. My blonde hair was pulled into a messy bun, my blazer wrinkled from a long day at the family services office. I'd spent the morning removing 2 children from a home where their father had broken their mother's arm. I'd spent the afternoon filing my own protective order. The irony wasn't lost on me. If you're enjoying the story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. I was a social worker. I helped people escape dangerous situations every single day. But when it came to my own life, I'd been blind. I'd made excuses for Marcus's jealousy, his need to control my schedule, the way he'd isolated me from friends. It had been gradual, like water eroding stone. I hadn't noticed until I was standing in the basin, looking up at walls too steep to climb. The restraining order was my ladder out. The judge had granted it immediately after seeing the photos. The bruises on my arms where Marcus had grabbed me during our last fight. The shattered phone he'd thrown against the wall when I tried to call my sister. The text messages that escalated from, "I love you," to "You're nothing without me," to "If I can't have you, no one will." That last one had finally made me act. The bus stopped at 42nd Street. The doors wheezed open. A handful of people got off. More pushed their way on. I shifted deeper into the crowd, using their bodies as shields. My eyes scanned every new face, looking for the sharp cheekbones and cold blue eyes that haunted my rearview mirror. A man in an expensive charcoal suit moved through the crowd with an efficiency that made people step aside without consciously realizing why. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble. His features were sharp, aristocratic, with a strong jaw and a nose that had been broken at least once. He wore the suit like armor, perfectly tailored to broad shoulders that suggested he spent time doing more than sitting behind a desk. But it was his eyes that made me look twice. Dark brown, almost black, they swept across the bus interior with an alertness that felt military or predatory. He assessed every person, every exit, every potential threat in the span of seconds. His gaze passed over me without pausing, dismissing me as non-threatening, and moved on. He took a position near the middle door, standing with his back to the wall, one hand gripping the pole, the other hanging loose at his side. Close to his hip, where a gun would be. I looked away quickly. I'd learned to read danger in my line of work. That man radiated it like heat from asphalt in summer. Whatever he was, whoever he was, I wanted nothing to do with him. The bus jerked forward again. I checked my watch. 20 more minutes until my stop in the East Village. My sister Jenna was expecting me. She'd insisted I stay with her for a while, at least until things with Marcus cooled down. Her apartment was small, barely big enough for her and her 7-year-old daughter Maya, but she'd made up the couch without hesitation. "You helped me leave, Derek," she'd said when I tried to protest. "Now let me help you." My phone buzzed again in my pocket. I turned it off, which meant Marcus was trying my work phone now. I pulled it out, my stomach nodding. 17 missed calls, 12 text messages. I opened the messages, immediately regretting it. "You can't hide from me, Emma. I know you filed the restraining order. Very cute. Do you really think a piece of paper is going to stop me? I'm watching you right now. That last one made my blood run cold. I looked up sharply, scanning the bus. My eyes moved from face to face. The construction worker reading a tabloid. The teenager scrolling through TikTok. The elderly woman with her shopping cart. The man in the suit, now looking at his phone with a slight frown. None of them were Marcus. I turned to look out the window at the street. Cars packed the lanes, honking impatiently. Pedestrians streamed past on the sidewalk. I couldn't see him, but that didn't mean he wasn't there. Marcus had money. He had connections. He could have hired someone to follow me. Another text arrived. You look scared. You should be. My hand started shaking. I shoved the phone back in my pocket. This was psychological warfare. Marcus was trying to make me paranoid, trying to make me second-guess every decision. I couldn't let him win. I wouldn't let him win. The bus stopped at 51st Street. The doors opened. A woman got on with a little girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old. The child had dark hair in 2 braids, brown skin, and enormous eyes that took in everything with a curiosity that reminded me of the kids I worked with. She was wearing a pink backpack decorated with unicorns and clutched a stuffed rabbit that had seen better days. The woman, her mother, presumably looked exhausted. She wore scrubs under a thin jacket, probably coming from a hospital shift. She swiped her Metro card, then helped her daughter do the same. "Hold on tight, Maya," the woman said, guiding her daughter to a pole. Maya, the same name as my niece. I felt a small pang in my chest. I missed Maya. I hadn't seen her in 2 weeks because I'd been too afraid to bring my problems to Jenna's doorstep. But tonight, I'd finally be there. Tonight, I'd be safe. The bus lurched forward. Maya stumbled, catching herself on the pole. Her stuffed rabbit fell to the floor. Before her mother could react, the man in the expensive suit bent down and picked it up. He handed it to Maya with a slight nod, his expression unreadable. "Thank you," Maya said, solemnly, hugging the rabbit to her chest. The man nodded again, a ghost of something that might have been a smile touching his lips. Then he straightened, his hand returning to his side, his eyes returning to their constant surveillance. I found myself studying him more carefully. His suit was custom, probably Italian, worth more than I made in 3 months. His shoes were polished leather, expensive but understated. He wore a simple watch on his left wrist, no wedding ring. Everything about him screamed wealth and power, but it was controlled, deliberate. He didn't want attention, which made me wonder why he was on a city bus instead of in a private car. My phone buzzed again. I closed my eyes, fighting the urge to throw it out the window. I couldn't afford a new phone, and I needed it for work, for emergencies. I just had to endure Marcus's harassment until the restraining order went into effect tomorrow morning. 24 more hours. I could survive 24 hours. The bus was slowing for the next stop when I heard it. A voice that made my entire body go rigid. "Emma! Emma, I know you're on there." I looked toward the front of the bus. Through the windshield, I could see him. Marcus was standing at the bus stop, his face flushed with anger, his expensive suit jacket hanging open. He'd been running. He was pointing at the bus, shouting something at the driver. No, 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 no. The bus stopped. The doors opened. Marcus stepped up onto the first step, his eyes scanning the crowded interior. "Sir, you need to pay the fare," the driver said wearily. "I'm looking for someone," Marcus snapped, pushing past him. My heart was hammering, so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. I pressed myself back against the pole, trying to disappear into the crowd. But there was nowhere to go. The bus was packed. The rear exit was too far away. If I tried to push through, he'd see me. Marcus moved down the aisle, his eyes wild. He was talking, his voice carrying over the rumble of the engine. "Emma Chun. Blonde hair, blue blazer. She's on this bus. Has anyone seen her?" People looked away, uncomfortable. New Yorkers had perfected the art of minding their own business. No one was going to help me. I spotted an empty seat near the back, partially hidden behind a large man with a construction vest. I slid into it, making myself as small as possible, angling my body toward the window. Maybe if I stayed still, if I didn't draw attention, there you are. Marcus's voice was right behind me. I felt his hand clamp down on my shoulder, fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. "We need to talk," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "Get up. We're leaving." "No." I whispered, trying to pull away. You need to leave. There's a restraining order. That doesn't go into effect until tomorrow. His grip tightened. And we're going to have a conversation before then. About how you're going to withdraw that order. About how you're going to apologize for embarrassing me. He yanked me to my feet. I stumbled, catching myself on the pole. The other passengers were watching now, but no one moved to help. Fear had a way of paralyzing people. Let go of me, I said louder this time. My social work training kicked in. Make noise. Draw attention. Don't go quietly. Shut up, Marcus hissed. He started pulling me toward the front of the bus. We're getting off at the next stop, and you're going to come willingly, or I'm going to, sir. The voice came from behind us. It was deep, calm, and carried an authority that made everyone on the bus go silent. Marcus turned, his hand still gripping my arm. The man in the expensive suit was standing there, his dark eyes fixed on Marcus with an intensity that made the temperature drop 10 degrees. Can you hear the lady screaming? A small voice asked. Everyone looked down. Little Maya was standing next to the man in the suit, her unicorn backpack slightly crooked, her stuffed rabbit tucked under one arm. She was looking up at Marcus with those enormous, serious eyes. She said no. Maya continued, her voice clear and brave in the silence. My mommy says when someone says no, you have to stop. Are you her friend? This is none of your business, kid, Marcus snapped. Emma, let's go. I don't think she wants to go with you, Maya said, tilting her head. She looked up at the man in the suit. Sir, can you hear the lady screaming? The man's eyes hadn't left Marcus. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, but it carried a weight that made my skin prickle. I hear her perfectly. Marcus's hand loosened on my arm just slightly. He was assessing the stranger, trying to determine if he was a real threat or just a bystander with a hero complex. I saw the calculation in his eyes. Marcus was fit, played tennis twice a week, thought he could handle himself in a fight. He was wrong. This is a private matter, Marcus said, attempting to sound reasonable. My girlfriend and I are having a disagreement. Nothing that concerns you. I'm not your girlfriend, I said, my voice shaking but firm. We broke up 3 weeks ago. You need to leave me alone. See? Marcus's smile was sharp, dangerous. Just a misunderstanding. Emma gets emotional sometimes. She doesn't always think clearly. The man in the suit took a single step forward. It was a small movement, but the effect was seismic. Marcus actually flinched, his hand dropping from my arm. The child asked you a question, the man said. His accent was faint, something European underneath the American English. Italian, maybe. The woman said no. That means you remove your hand. That means you exit the bus. That means you stop existing in her vicinity. Who the hell do you think you are? Marcus demanded, trying to recover his bravado. You can't just... I can. The man's hand moved to his hip, just barely pulling back the edge of his suit jacket. I caught a glimpse of black leather. A holster. And I will. Marcus went pale. His eyes darted to the bulge under the man's jacket, then to the exits, calculating his options. This isn't over, Emma, Marcus said, backing toward the front of the bus. We're going to talk about this. You can't just file a restraining order and think. Sir, I'm calling the police, the bus driver announced, his phone already in his hand. You need to exit my bus immediately. Marcus looked around at the watching faces, at Maya's mother who had her daughter pulled protectively against her side, at the construction worker who had stood up and crossed his arms over his massive chest, at me standing next to a man who looked like he'd killed people and lost no sleep over it. Fine, Marcus spat. But this conversation isn't finished. He turned and stormed off the bus, shoving past an elderly woman in his haste. The doors closed behind him with a wheeze. The bus pulled away from the curb. Through the window, I could see Marcus standing on the sidewalk, his phone already pressed to his ear, his eyes tracking the bus as we moved into traffic. My legs gave out. I sat down hard on the nearest seat, my hands trembling. Uncontrollably, adrenaline was crashing through my system, making my vision blur at the edges. Miss, are you okay? I looked up. Maya's mother was standing in front of me, her expression concerned. That man, was he hurting you? He's my ex-boyfriend. I managed. I filed a restraining order today. He found me. Oh, honey. The woman sat down next to me, putting a comforting hand on my shoulder. I'm so sorry. Men like that, they don't stop easily. I know. I press my palms against my eyes, trying to steady my breathing. I work with domestic violence victims. I know all the statistics. I know how dangerous it gets when you try to leave. But knowing and experiencing are two very different things. Mommy, is the lady going to be okay? Maya asked, her small hand tugging on her mother's scrubs. I think so, baby, her mother said gently. She looked at me. Do you have somewhere safe to go? My sister's apartment. I was headed there when my voice cracked. I couldn't finish the sentence. The man in the suit was still standing nearby. He hadn't returned to his position by the door. He was watching me with an expression that was difficult to read. Not pity, exactly. Something more like assessment. You did well, he said quietly. You made noise. You fought back. Many people freeze. I looked up at him, really seeing him for the first time. Up close, he was even more imposing. There was a scar along his jawline, faint but visible. His hands were large, the knuckles slightly scarred. These were hands that had seen violence. Thank you, I said, for intervening. You didn't have to. Yes, I did. He glanced down at Maya, who was still watching him with those huge, curious eyes. The child was right. When someone says no, you stop. This is not complicated. Maya beamed at him, clutching her stuffed rabbit. You're nice, she announced. What's your name? Maya, don't bother the man, her mother chided gently. She's not bothering me. The ghost of a smile touched his lips again. He crouched down, so he was at Maya's eye level. My name is Dante. Like the poet, I found myself asking. The question slipped out before I could stop it. He looked up at me, surprise flickering across his features. You know Dante Alighieri? I took Italian literature in college, I said. The Divine Comedy. Hell, purgatory, paradise. Though I mostly remember the hell part. Most people do. He stood up, his eyes lingering on me with renewed interest. Hell is always more memorable than paradise. The bus stopped again. Maya's mother checked the street sign and gathered her daughter. This is our stop, she said to me. Will you be okay? I think so, I said, though I wasn't sure I believed it. Good luck, honey. She squeezed my hand once, then guided Maya toward the exit. Bye, Dante. Maya called over her shoulder, waving her stuffed rabbit's paw at him. Bye, lady. I hope you feel better. Bye, sweetheart. I called back, managing a smile. The doors closed. The bus pulled back into traffic. I realized with a start that I was now sitting alone on the bench seat, and Dante, the man who just scared off my ex-boyfriend with nothing more than a look and a glimpse of a gun, was still standing there. Your stop? He asked. Avenue A, I said. Another 10 minutes or so. He nodded, then did something that surprised me. He sat down on the seat across the aisle, angling his body, so he had a clear view of both the front and rear exits. What are you doing? I asked. Ensuring you reach your destination, safely. He said it matter-of-factly, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. You don't need to do that. I'm fine. Marcus is gone. Marcus, Dante repeated, his tone making the name sound like a curse. The man who grabbed you. He called you Emma. Emma Chun, I confirmed. And you're Dante. He hesitated for just a moment. Caruso. Dante Caruso. The name sounded Italian, but there was something in the way he said it that made me think it might not be his real name. Or at least, not the name most people called him. Well, Mr. Caruso, I appreciate your help, but you really don't need to stay. I'm sure you have somewhere important to be. That suit didn't come from Men's Warehouse. I was heading downtown, he said with a slight shrug. This bus goes downtown. I am in no hurry. I studied him more carefully. Everything about him screamed wealth and power. The suit, the watch, the way he carried himself. Men like him didn't ride city buses. They had drivers, private cars, probably helicopters for all I knew. Why are you on a bus? I asked. No offense, but you don't exactly look like you need public transportation. My car broke down, he said smoothly. I sent my driver to deal with it. The bus was convenient. It was a lie. A polished, practiced lie, but a lie nonetheless. I'd spent years interviewing people, learning to read body language, spot inconsistencies. Whatever Dante Caruso was doing on this bus, it wasn't because of car trouble. But I was too tired to push. Too rattled from the encounter with Marcus to interrogate my unlikely protector. Well, thank you, I said again. For what you did. That little girl, Maya, she was braver than half the adults on this bus. Children see things clearly, Dante said. Adults complicate simple truths. Someone says no. You stop. This is simple. You think so, I said bitterly. But my ex-boyfriend seems to think no means try harder. Men like him are cowards, Dante said. The contempt in his voice was absolute. They choose victims they think are weak. They rely on fear and isolation. But they are the weak ones. He's not weak, I said quietly. He's dangerous. He has money connections. He told me once that if I ever tried to leave him, he'd make sure I regretted it. I didn't believe him then. I believe him now. Dante's jaw tightened. This restraining order you filed. When does it take effect? Tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. The judge granted an emergency order, but there's a 24-hour processing period. And until then, you are vulnerable. I'm staying with my sister. He doesn't know where she lives. I'll be safe there. He found you on this bus, Dante pointed out. How did he know you would be here? The question hit me like cold water. I hadn't thought about that. I'd deliberately chosen a different route, left work at an unusual time, turned off my phone. So how had Marcus known? My phone, I said slowly. He must have put tracking software on it. During one of the times he fixed it for me after an argument. Then he knows where you're going. Panic flared in my chest again. No, I turned it off. Tracking software works even when the phone appears off, Dante said. His voice was gentle, but his words were devastating. If he has access to your location, he has it now. I looked down at the phone in my lap. The device that was supposed to connect me to safety was actually a beacon leading Marcus straight to Jenna's apartment. To my niece. I need to get off, I said, standing up. Abruptly. I need to. I can't go to Jenna's. Not if he's tracking me. I'll lead him right to her. Sit down, Dante said, his voice calm but commanding. Panicking helps no one. I'm not panicking. I'm being practical. If Marcus knows where I'm going, I need to go somewhere else. Somewhere he won't expect. And where would that be? I opened my mouth to answer, then closed it. I didn't have anywhere else to go. My own apartment was the first place Marcus would look. My friends had slowly been cut out of my life over the past year. My parents lived in California. I had colleagues, but none I was close enough with to impose on like this. I was alone. Dante watched this realization play across my face. When he spoke again, his voice was surprisingly gentle. You need somewhere safe for tonight. Somewhere this man cannot find you. Somewhere you can think clearly and make a plan. Yes, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. But I don't have anywhere like that. I do. I looked at him sharply. I'm sorry, what? I have a place, Dante said. It is secure. Private. No one will find you there. You're offering to take me, a complete stranger, to your home? I am offering you a safe location for the night, he corrected. Whether that is my home or another property is not relevant. What matters is that you will be safe. Every instinct I had was screaming at me. I didn't know this man. He carried a gun. He had lied about why he was on the bus. He radiated danger like other men radiated cologne. But he had also protected me when no one else would. He had listened to a child's simple observation about right and wrong and acted on it. And most importantly, he was right about Marcus tracking my phone. If I went to Jenna's, I'd be putting her and my niece in danger. If I went anywhere Marcus might expect, I'd be walking into a trap. Sometimes the devil you didn't know was safer than the devil you did. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. Why are you helping me? I asked. You don't know me. This isn't your problem. Dante was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, there was something in his voice I couldn't quite identify. Memory, maybe. Or regret. Because someone should have helped when it mattered, he said. And no one did. The bus was slowing for my stop on Avenue A. Through the window, I could see the familiar street the bodega on the corner where Jenna bought her morning coffee, the playground where Maya spent her afternoons. I could get off this bus, walk 3 blocks to Jenna's apartment, and hope that Marcus didn't follow. Hope that the restraining order would protect us. Hope that he'd finally accept that it was over. Or I could trust a dangerous stranger and buy myself time to figure out a real solution. The doors opened with their familiar wheeze. "This is your stop," the driver called back. I looked at Dante. He was watching me with those dark, unreadable eyes, waiting for my decision. He hadn't tried to pressure me. He hadn't made promises he couldn't keep. He'd simply offered an option. "If I come with you," I said slowly, "I need to be able to contact my sister. Let her know I'm safe." "Of course. And I need to know I can leave whenever I want. That I'm not trading one controlling man for another. You will have your own space, your own key. You can leave any time you wish." His eyes held mine. "I am not him, Emma. I am offering protection, not a cage." The driver was getting impatient. "Miss, are you getting off or not?" I took a deep breath, made a decision that would change everything. "I'm staying on," I called to the driver. I sat back down. The doors closed. The bus pulled away from the stop, carrying me past the familiar and into the unknown. Dante nodded once, a gesture that might have been approval, or might have been relief. "Smart choice," he said. "I hope so," I replied. Because if I was wrong about him, if I just walked willingly into a different kind of danger, there would be no one to hear me scream this time. No little girl to ask if he could hear the lady screaming. No crowd of witnesses to shame him into letting go. Just me and a man named Dante, heading toward a destination I couldn't imagine. The bus rumbled on through the Manhattan streets, carrying me toward either salvation or disaster. I just wasn't sure which. Dante made a call as the bus continued downtown. He spoke in rapid Italian, his voice low enough that I couldn't make out the words even if I'd understood the language. The conversation was brief, clipped. When he ended the call, he turned back to me. "We will get off at Houston Street," he said. "Someone will meet us there." "Someone." My voice came out sharper than I intended. "What does that mean?" "Who?" "My driver. The car is repaired." He said it smoothly, maintaining the fiction we both knew was false. "Right. The car trouble." His lips quirked slightly. "Yes. The car trouble." The bus rumbled south, past the trendy restaurants of the East Village, past the boutiques and galleries that had gentrified the neighborhood beyond recognition. I watched the streets blur past, my mind racing through every self-defense technique I'd learned, every warning sign I'd taught other women to watch for. I was doing exactly what I advised my clients never to do. I was going somewhere isolated with a man I didn't know, a man who carried a gun, a man who'd lied to me within 5 minutes of speaking. But Marcus had found me on a bus. Marcus had tracking software on my phone. Marcus had connections and money and a vindictive streak a mile wide. The restraining order wouldn't stop him. It was a piece of paper. Marcus had proven tonight that paper meant nothing to him. I pulled out my phone, the device feeling like a bomb in my hand. "I need to call my sister," I said. "Tell her I'm not coming." "Use this instead." Dante pulled a phone from his inside jacket pocket. It was sleek, expensive, and completely unfamiliar. "Your phone is compromised. Anything you say on it, he may be able to hear." I stared at the offered phone. "You think he's listening to my calls?" "If he has tracking software, he likely has access to other functions. Microphone, camera, everything." My stomach turned. How many conversations had Marcus overheard? How many private moments had he watched through my phone's camera? The violation was suffocating. I took Dante's phone with shaking hands. The screen was locked. 0827, he said, giving me the passcode without hesitation. I entered the numbers. The phone unlocked to a minimalist home screen. No photos, no personal apps. Just the basics. I pulled up the keypad and dialed Jenna's number from memory. She answered on the second ring. "Hello. Jenna, it's me. Emma, where are you? You were supposed to be here half an hour ago. Maya's been asking when Aunt Emma is coming." The sound of my niece's name made my throat tight. "I'm okay, but I can't come tonight. Something happened." "What happened? Are you hurt?" Jenna's voice shifted instantly from casual to alert. She knew. She understood what "something happened" meant when you were running from an ex, Marcus found me. On the bus. He grabbed me, tried to force me off. I kept my voice low, conscious of Dante listening. Someone intervened. He's gone now, but Jenna, he's tracking my phone. He knew exactly which bus I was on. If I come to your place, I'll lead him straight to you and Maya. The silence on the other end lasted 3 heartbeats. When Jenna spoke again, her voice was steel. Where are you going? Somewhere safe. I can't tell you where. I don't want you to have to lie if he shows up asking questions. Emma, I'll call you tomorrow from a different number. I promise I'm okay. I just need tonight to figure out my next move. You're with someone. It wasn't a question. Jenna had always been able to read me. I glanced at Dante. He was staring out the window, deliberately giving me the illusion of privacy. Yes. Is it safe? This person you're with? I thought about the gun under Dante's jacket, the way he'd made Marcus retreat with nothing more than a look, the careful way he'd positioned himself on the bus to monitor all exits. I think so, I said honestly. Safer than leading Marcus to your door. Jenna exhaled slowly. Okay, but Emma, you call me tomorrow morning. 9 a.m. latest. If I don't hear from you by 9:05, I'm calling the police and telling them everything. Deal. And Emma, be careful. Men who help women in trouble, sometimes they have their own agendas. I know. I looked at Dante again. He was scrolling through something on his own phone, his expression neutral. I know what I'm doing. Another lie. I had no idea what I was doing. But Jenna didn't need to carry that fear along with her own. I love you, Jenna said. Tell Maya I'll come visit soon. When this is all over. I will. Love you too. I ended the call and handed the phone back to Dante. Thank you. He pocketed it without comment. The bus was slowing for Houston Street. Through the window, I could see a black sedan idling at the curb, hazard lights blinking. It was the kind of car that cost more than I made in 2 years. Sleek, European, probably armored based on the way it sat heavy on its suspension. That's us, Dante said, standing. He moved with fluid grace despite his size, the limp I'd half expected to see completely absent. Whatever violence had scarred his knuckles, it hadn't slowed him down. I followed him to the front of the bus, my legs unsteady. The driver pulled to a stop. The doors wheezed open. Thank you, I said to the driver as I passed. He nodded, his eyes moving between me and Dante with a wary assessment of someone who drove city buses for a living and had seen everything. We stepped out onto the sidewalk. The November air was sharp, carrying the smell of roasting chestnuts from a street vendor and exhaust from the backed-up traffic. The black sedan's rear door opened before we reached it. A man stepped out. He was massive, easily 6'4", with the build of someone who lifted more than weights. His head was shaved, his face impassive. He wore a dark suit that strained across his shoulders and an earpiece that marked him as security. Boss, he said, nodding to Dante. His eyes cut to me, assessing me in a single glance. This the package? Emma Chun, Dante corrected, his voice carrying a note of warning. She's a guest, not a package. The big man's expression didn't change, but something in his posture shifted. Yes, boss. Ma'am. He held the rear door open, waiting. I hesitated at the threshold. This was the point of no return. Once I got in that car, I was committed. I'd be completely dependent on Dante's protection, his truthfulness, his intentions. Emma! Dante's voice was quiet beside me. You can still walk away. I will not be offended. I will have Marco drive you anywhere you wish to go. A hotel. A friend's house. Anywhere. The offer was genuine. I could hear it in his tone. He was giving me an out. No pressure. No manipulation. Which, perversely, made me trust him more. No, I said, squaring my shoulders. I'm coming with you. I slid into the back seat. The leather was soft, expensive, heated against the November chill. Dante got in beside me, maintaining a careful distance. Marco closed the door and moved around to the driver's seat. The interior of the car smelled like leather and something else. Gun oil, maybe. Or the particular scent of power, hard to define, impossible to mistake. Marco pulled smoothly into traffic. We headed west, then south. Away from the East Village, away from everything familiar. Where are we going? I asked. Tribeca, Dante said. I have a loft there. Top floor. Secure building. No one gets in without authorization. You live in Tribeca? The neighborhood was one of the most expensive in Manhattan. Celebrities, finance executives, old money hiding behind converted warehouse facades. I have several properties, he said. The Tribeca loft is the most secure. And the most comfortable. Several properties. Of course he did. I studied him in the dim light of a car's interior. The expensive suit, the calm authority, the way Marco had called him boss. This wasn't a man who worked for someone else. This was a man who gave orders and expected them to be followed without question. What do you do, Dante? I asked. For work. He was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his answer was careful. I handle logistics for various business interests. Import-export, primarily. It was the kind of vague answer that could mean anything. Or nothing. Import-export could be legitimate trade. Or it could be a euphemism for something much darker. And those business interests require you to carry a gun on a city bus. His lips curved slightly. I carry a gun everywhere, Emma. New York is not always a safe city. Most people don't need that level of protection. Most people are not me. We drove in silence for a few blocks. I watched the city slide past, the glow of restaurant windows, couples walking hand in hand, a dog walker managing 6 leashes with practiced expertise. Normal life. The life I'd been living until Marcus decided I was his property instead of my own person. Can I ask you something? I said. Yes. Earlier on the bus. When Maya asked if you could hear me screaming. You went pale. Why? Dante's jaw tightened. For a long moment, I thought he wouldn't answer. Then he spoke, his voice careful, controlled. Because I have heard women scream before, and I have not always been able to stop it. The weight in those words was crushing. This wasn't a hypothetical. This was lived experience. Trauma, even. I'm sorry, I said softly. Don't be. You did nothing wrong. He turned to look at me directly. But that child, Maya, she was right to ask. Too many people hear women screaming and do nothing. They tell themselves it is not their business. They look away. But you didn't. No, I did not. His dark eyes held mine. And I will not. Whatever happens, Emma, I want you to know that. While you are under my protection, no one will hurt you. Not Marcus. Not anyone. The intensity in his voice should have frightened me. Instead, it made me feel something I hadn't felt in months. Safe. The car turned onto a cobblestone street in Tribeca, pulling up in front of a building that had once been a textile warehouse. It had been converted with the kind of money that made the transformation look effortless. Original brick exposed, massive windows, a discreet entrance with a security panel that probably cost more than my car. Marco got out and opened my door. Dante emerged from the other side, his eyes scanning the street with automatic vigilance before he nodded to himself, satisfied. This way, he said. The lobby was minimalist. Polished concrete floors, industrial lighting, a security desk where a uniformed guard sat behind bulletproof glass. The guard looked up as we entered, his hand moving instinctively toward something under the desk before he recognized Dante. Mr. Caruso, the guard said, relaxing. Good evening, sir. George. Dante nodded at him. This is Miss Chin. She'll be staying in the penthouse. Add her to the authorized list. Full access. George's eyes moved to me, his expression neutral but curious. Yes, sir. I'll need a photo for the system. Tomorrow, Dante said. Tonight, she is with me. That is sufficient authorization. Of course, sir. We moved to the elevator. Dante used a key card to call it, then another to access the penthouse level. The elevator was all glass and steel, rising through the center of the building with a smooth efficiency that made my stomach drop. I watched the floors fall away beneath us. 4 stories, 5, 6. We passed other units, glimpses of exposed brick and modern furniture through windows, the warm glow of inhabited spaces. Then we rose above them, into the top floor that took up the entire level. The elevator opened directly into Dante's loft. The space was massive, 20-foot ceilings with original wooden beams. Windows on 3 sides offering views of the Hudson River, the downtown skyline, and the Brooklyn Bridge, lit up like a jeweled necklace. The floors were wide plank reclaimed wood, the furniture a mix of modern and antique that somehow worked together. A kitchen with professional-grade appliances occupied one corner. A living area with leather sofas and a fireplace anchored another. Stairs led to what I assumed was a bedroom loft. It was beautiful. Masculine but not austere. Expensive but lived in. The home of someone with impeccable taste and unlimited resources. I struggled to find words. This is incredible. Thank you. Dante shrugged out of his suit jacket, revealing the shoulder holster he wore. He removed it with practiced efficiency, securing the gun in a drawer with a biometric lock. You must be hungry. I will make something. You cook. The question slipped out before I could stop it. He raised an eyebrow. You sound surprised. Men like you usually have people who cook for you. I do have people, but I prefer to cook when I am home. It is. He paused, searching for the word. Meditative. He moved to the kitchen, rolling up his shirt sleeves as he went. I followed, uncertain what else to do. The kitchen was spotless, organized with military precision. Dante opened the massive refrigerator, surveying the contents with the focus of a general planning a campaign. I have chicken, vegetables, pasta, he said. What do you prefer? Whatever is easiest. I don't want to be any trouble. He looked at me with those dark, penetrating eyes. Emma, you are not trouble. You are a guest. If I did not want you here, you would not be here. Now, what would you like to eat? The directness was startling. No passive-aggressive undertones, no making me guess what he really meant. Just honest communication. Pasta sounds good, I admitted. If it's not too much work. It is never too much work. He pulled out ingredients, fresh pasta from the refrigerator, tomatoes, garlic, basil, olive oil. Sit. I will cook. You will tell me about this Marcus, who does not understand the word no. I sat on one of the bar stools at the kitchen island, watching as Dante moved through the space with surprising grace for a man his size. He heated a pan, drizzled olive oil, started mincing garlic with a knife that looked like it could cut through bone. What do you want to know? I asked. How long were you together? 8 months. It started wonderful, like these things always do. He was charming, attentive, generous. Then around month 3, things started to change. He became controlling. Yes. Little things at first. Wanting to know where I was going, who I was seeing. Then bigger things. He didn't like my friends. Didn't like when I worked late. Started monitoring my phone. Dante added the garlic to the pan. The smell filled the kitchen, rich and comforting. And when you tried to leave? The first time, he cried. Promised to change. Said he loved me too much. That's why he acted that way. I believed him. I wrapped my arms around myself. The second time, he got angry. Threw things. Punched a hole in my apartment wall. That's when I started to get scared. And the third time he grabbed me. Left bruises. That's when I finally went to the courthouse. I looked down at my hands. I'm a social worker, Dante. I help women escape abusive relationships. I know all the warning signs. I know the statistics. And I still ended up here. Knowledge does not make you immune to manipulation, Dante said, his voice surprisingly gentle. He added crushed tomatoes to the pan, stirring with steady, controlled movements. These men, they are predators. They know how to find vulnerabilities, how to exploit them. You are not weak for falling victim to his tactics. You are strong for recognizing them and leaving. I don't feel strong. You got on a bus alone, knowing he might find you. You fought back when he grabbed you. You made noise instead of going quietly. You chose to trust a stranger rather than be backed into a corner. He looked up from the stove, his dark eyes intense. That is strength, Emma. Do not diminish it. The pasta was boiling now, filling the loft with steam and the comforting smell of cooking food. Dante moved between the pots with practiced efficiency, tasting the sauce, adjusting the seasoning. He worked in silence for a few minutes, then spoke again. I had a sister, he said quietly. The past tense made my chest tighten. Had! She died when she was 23. Her boyfriend killed her, strangled her in their apartment after she tried to leave him. His voice was carefully controlled, but I could hear the rage beneath it. Rage and grief, twisted together. He called me after. crying, saying it was an accident, that he loved her, that she had pushed him too far. Dante, I'm so sorry. I was in Chicago on business. By the time I got back to New York, she was already dead. The police had arrested him. He went to trial, got convicted. 20 years to life. He drained the pasta, his movements mechanical. He served 8 years before someone killed him in prison. Shanked in the shower. They never found out who did it. The way he said it made me think he knew exactly who had done it. Might have even ordered it himself. That's why you helped me, I said. On the bus. Because of your sister. Partially. He plated the pasta, arranging it with more care than I would have expected. But also because it was the right thing to do. Because that child asked me a question I could not ignore. Because I have spent 20 years building power, and if I cannot use that power to protect the vulnerable, then what is the point? He set the plate in front of me. The pasta was perfect. Al dente, tossed with a sauce that smelled like heaven. Fresh basil on top, a drizzle of good olive oil. Eat, he said. Then I will show you your room. You look exhausted. I picked up the fork, suddenly realizing I was starving. I hadn't eaten since a stale bagel at my desk this morning. The pasta was incredible, simple but perfectly executed, the kind of food that reminded you eating was supposed to be a pleasure, not just fuel. This is amazing, I said between bites. My mother's recipe. She insisted all her children learn to cook. She said it was the foundation of civilization, feeding people well. Was she Italian? Sicilian? There is a difference. I smiled despite everything. I'll remember that. We ate in companionable silence. Dante had made himself a plate as well, eating with the same focused efficiency he brought to everything else. When we were finished, he cleared the dishes, rinsing them in the sink before loading them into the dishwasher. Come, he said. I will show you where you will sleep. He led me up the stairs to the loft level. There were 2 doors. He opened the one on the right, revealing a bedroom that was almost as large as my entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a king-size bed with white linens, a sitting area with a comfortable-looking chair and a reading lamp, an en-suite bathroom visible through another door. This is yours, he said. The bathroom has toiletries. There are clothes in the closet. My assistant keeps emergency items in all my properties. They may not fit perfectly, but they will suffice until tomorrow when we can get you proper things. Dante, this is too much. I can't. You can. And you will. He pulled a key from his pocket, pressing it into my hand. This is the elevator key. You can come and go as you please. You are not a prisoner, Emma. You are a guest. I looked down at the key, feeling its weight in my palm. Why are you doing this? Really? He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft but firm. Because I have the power to help, and you need help. Because a child asked me if I could hear you screaming, and I realized I have been hearing women scream my entire life. My mother, when my father was drunk. My sister, when her boyfriend was angry. Strangers on the street, in alleyways, in homes where no one was listening. He looked at me with those dark, intense eyes. I am listening now, Emma, and I will not turn away. Tears stung my eyes. I blinked them back, refusing to cry in front of this strange, dangerous, unexpectedly kind man. Thank you, I whispered. He nodded once. Get some rest. Tomorrow, we will deal with Marcus. But tonight, you are safe. I promise you that. He turned to leave, his footsteps quiet on the wooden floor. Dante! I called after him. He paused in the doorway, looking back. Your sister. What was her name? His expression softened, just slightly. Lucia. Her name was Lucia. She would be proud of you, I said, for helping me, for listening. Perhaps. His voice was rough. Or perhaps she would tell me I am 20 years too late. He left before I could respond, closing the door softly behind him. I stood alone in the beautiful bedroom, holding the elevator key, trying to process everything that had happened in the last few hours. This morning, I had been Emma Chen, social worker, survivor, woman with a plan to escape her abusive ex-boyfriend through legal channels. Tonight, I was Emma Chen, guest of a man who carried a gun and cooked perfect pasta and had secrets in his eyes that I was only beginning to glimpse. I walked to the window, looking out over the glittering cityscape. Somewhere out there, Marcus was planning his next move. Somewhere out there, danger was circling. But for tonight, behind bulletproof glass in a penthouse fortress, I was safe. I just hoped the price for that safety wouldn't be more than I could afford to pay. I woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the smell of coffee. For a disoriented moment, I couldn't remember where I was. Then it all came flooding back. Marcus on the bus, little Maya's brave question, Dante's dark eyes promising protection. I checked the clock on the nightstand. 7:45 a.m. I'd slept for 10 hours straight, dreamless and deep. The kind of sleep that only came when your body finally believed it was safe. I found clothes in the closet exactly as Dante had promised. Expensive casual were in neutral colors, all sized close enough to fit. I pulled on black leggings and an oversized cashmere sweater that probably cost more than my monthly rent, then padded downstairs barefoot. Dante was in the kitchen, dressed in dark slacks and a white dress shirt, reading something on a tablet. 2 coffee cups sat on the counter. He looked up as I approached. "Good morning. I was beginning to think you would sleep until noon." "What time did you wake up?" 5 a.m. "I do not sleep much." He pushed one of the coffee cups toward me. "Cream, no sugar." I guessed based on statistical probability. I took the cup, surprised he'd thought about it at all. "Thank you. What are you reading?" "Information about Marcus Westfield." He turned the tablet so I could see. It was filled with what looked like a background check on steroids, financial records, property ownership, business associates, even a timeline of his movements over the past month. My hands tightened around the coffee cup. "How did you get all this?" "I have resources." He said it matter-of-factly. "Your ex-boyfriend has significant debt. His real estate company is over-leveraged. He borrowed heavily from some particularly unpleasant people to finance a development that fell through. He owes $3.2 million to individuals who do not accept late payments." "I didn't know any of that." "He would not want you to know. Men like him, they project success while drowning in failure. You leaving him was not just about losing control. It was about losing the image of stability you provided." The pieces clicked into place. Marcus's increasing desperation over the past few weeks. The way he'd insisted I attend his business dinners, smile for his associates, play the role of successful girlfriend. I'd thought it was about possession, but it was also about presentation. What happens to men who owe $3 million to unpleasant people? I asked, though I suspected I knew the answer. "Nothing good." Dante took a sip of his coffee. "Which makes him more dangerous to you. Desperate men take desperate actions. The restraining order goes into effect at 9 a.m. A piece of paper will not stop a desperate man." He set down his cup. "But I can." "How?" "I spoke with the people Marcus owes money to. Explained that his harassment of you was creating complications for my business interests. Suggested that if he continued to be a problem, I would consider it a personal insult." I stared at him. "You spoke to loan sharks about me?" "Not loan sharks. More sophisticated than that. But yes." His dark eyes held mine. "They have agreed to have a conversation with Marcus this morning. To explain that you are under protection. That touching you, contacting you, or thinking about you would be extremely detrimental to his health and financial future. You're threatening him. I am educating him about consequences. There is a difference." My phone, the new phone Dante had given me last night, buzzed on the counter. A text from Jenna. It's 8:47. "You have 13 minutes to call me, or I'm calling the police." I showed the message to Dante. He nodded. "Call her. Use the phone here. And tell her to bring your niece." "Why?" "Because children should meet the people who protect their aunts. And because Maya deserves to know her question mattered." 20 minutes later, Jenna burst through the elevator doors with Maya in tow. My sister's eyes were wild, scanning the loft, landing on me, then on Dante, who stood calmly by the kitchen island. "Emma!" Jenna crossed the space in seconds, pulling me into a fierce hug. "I've been losing my mind. Are you okay? Did he hurt you?" "I'm fine. I promise." I hugged her back, breathing in her familiar lavender shampoo. "Jenna, this is Dante Caruso. He helped me yesterday. He's letting me stay here until things with Marcus are resolved." Jenna pulled back, studying Dante with the suspicious eyes of an older sister. "Thank you for helping Emma. But I need to know, what exactly are your intentions here?" To ensure Emma's safety, Dante said simply. Nothing more, nothing less. And Emma! Maya had been hanging back, but now she rushed forward, wrapping her small arms around my waist. The man said you'd be here. The nice man from the bus. I knelt down, pulling her into a proper hug. Hey, sweetheart. Thank you for being so brave yesterday. You helped me a lot. I just asked a question, Maya said, her serious brown eyes looking past me to Dante. Mommy says asking questions is important. Dante crouched down to her level, his intimidating presence somehow softening in the presence of this small, fearless child. Your mother is very wise, and you are very brave. Not many adults would have spoken up the way you did. Maya beamed. Can I see your house? It's really big. Maya, Jenna started, but Dante held up a hand. It's fine. Emma, perhaps you can show Maya the view from the windows while I speak with your sister? I understood. He wanted to talk to Jenna privately, to reassure her, or to warn her. Maybe both. I took Maya's hand and walked her to the massive windows overlooking the Hudson. Behind us, I could hear Dante's low voice explaining something to Jenna. I couldn't make out the words, but Jenna's body language gradually shifted from defensive to thoughtful. Is that man your boyfriend? Maya asked, pressing her nose against the glass. No, he's a friend who's helping me. He looks scary, but the scary-looking ones are usually the nicest. That's what my teacher says about her husband. He has tattoos and a motorcycle, but he brings cookies to school. I smiled despite everything. That's very wise, Maya. When we returned to the kitchen, Jenna's expression had shifted. She looked at Dante with something between respect and wariness. Okay, she said to me. I understand the situation better now. You'll stay here for a few days while things are handled. But Emma, she gripped my hands, you call me every day. Twice a day. And if anything feels wrong, you leave immediately and come to me. Deal? Deal. After Jenna and Maya left, the loft felt enormous and quiet. Dante returned to his tablet, reading through more documents. I sat at the kitchen island, drinking coffee and trying to process the surreal nature of my life. At 9:30, Dante's phone rang. He answered in Italian, his expression neutral. The conversation lasted less than a minute. When he hung up, he looked at me. It is done. Marcus has been informed of the situation. He has agreed to cease all contact with you. The restraining order is in effect, but it will not be needed. He understands the consequences of violating it now extend beyond legal penalties. He's really going to leave me alone. Just like that? Men like Marcus are bullies. They prey on those they perceive as weak and unprotected. Now you are neither. Dante set down his phone. He will focus his energy on saving his failing business and avoiding the people he owes money to. You are no longer his priority. I should have felt relieved. Victorious, even. Instead, I felt oddly hollow. Thank you, I said quietly, for everything. I should probably start looking for a new apartment. Somewhere Marcus doesn't know about. You can stay here as long as you need. I can't impose on you forever. It is not an imposition. He stood, crossing to where I sat. Emma, I want you to understand something. What happened yesterday on that bus, it reminded me why I built the power I have. Not for money, not for territory, but to be able to say no more when I hear women screaming. Your sister, yes, and my mother before her, and you, and countless others I never had the chance to help. His dark eyes held mine. I cannot save everyone, but I can save some, and I choose to save you. The intensity of his gaze made my breath catch. This was an attraction. Not exactly. It was something deeper. Recognition. Two people who'd survived different kinds of hell, finding unexpected connection in a moment of crisis. I don't know how to repay you, I said. Then don't try. Just. He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. Just be safe. Build a new life. Help other people the way you've been helping them. That is payment enough. Over the next few weeks, I stayed in Dante's penthouse while I found a new apartment, changed my phone number, and rebuilt the boundaries Marcus had demolished. Dante was gone most days, handling his mysterious import-export business, but he always returned in the evenings. We fell into an unexpected routine, cooking dinner together, talking about everything except the violence that had brought us into each other's orbits. I learned he spoke 4 languages, that he'd lost his father young, raised by his Sicilian mother who taught him strength and mercy in equal measure, that he collected first edition books and hated modern art and could quote Dante Alighieri's Inferno from memory. He learned I'd wanted to be a teacher before my parents' accident pushed me into social work, that I loved old movies and terrible reality TV, that I sang off-key in the shower and always burned toast and still had nightmares about Marcus sometimes, waking in the dark certain he'd found me. On those nights, Dante never asked questions. He'd just appear at my door with tea and sit in the chair by the window until I fell back asleep, a silent guardian against the demons that hunted in dreams. 6 weeks after that bus ride, I moved into my new apartment in Brooklyn. Dante helped me carry boxes, his security team sweeping the building first, installing extra locks, and a security system that was probably overkill but made me feel safe. "You don't have to do all this," I said, watching him program the alarm panel with the same focus he brought to everything. "I know, but I want to," he finished and turned to me. "Emma, I need you to know something. What started as protection has become something else. Something I did not expect." My heart hammered against my ribs. "What do you mean?" "I mean that having you in my home these past weeks has made me remember what it feels like to have someone to come home to. Someone who does not fear me or want something from me. Someone who sees both the monster and the man and chooses to stay anyway." "You're not a monster, Dante. Parts of me are. The parts that threaten Marcus. The parts that have done far worse to far worse men." He stepped closer, his hand coming up to cup my face with unexpected gentleness. "But with you, I remember the parts my mother tried to cultivate, the parts my sister believed still existed. I see those parts too," I whispered. "The man who listens when little girls ask important questions. The man who cooks perfect pasta and quotes poetry. The man who sits in a chair all night because someone has nightmares." "Emma," I kissed him, closed the distance between us and pressed my lips to his, tasting coffee and possibility and the future I hadn't thought I deserved. He responded immediately, his arms coming around me, pulling me close. It wasn't desperate or aggressive. It was sure, solid. The kiss of a man who knew exactly what he wanted and was patient enough to wait for permission to take it. When we broke apart, both breathing harder, he rested his forehead against mine. "I am not an easy man to be with," he murmured. "My world is complicated, dangerous." "I work with trauma victims in one of the most violent cities in America," I replied. "I understand dangerous. And you still want this? Want me?" I thought about the girl on the bus, terrified and alone. I thought about the man who'd heard her scream and refused to look away. I thought about the unexpected safety I'd found in the arms of danger. "Yes," I said. "I want this. I want you." He smiled then, rare and genuine. "Then you have me. For as long as you want me." "That might be a very long time." "Good." He kissed me again, softer this time. "I am patient, and I am very good at protecting what is mine." A year later, I stood in that same Tribeca loft, now as much my home as Dante's, watching Maya color at the kitchen island while Dante cooked dinner. Jenna sat beside her daughter, laughing at something Dante said in his accented English. My phone, the legitimate phone I'd had for months now, no tracking software, no threatening messages, buzzed with a text from a client thanking me for helping her escape her abusive husband. "You saved my life," she wrote. "I don't know how to repay you." I smiled, typing back words I'd once heard from a dangerous man on a bus. "Then don't try. Just be safe. Build a new life. Help other people when you can. That is payment enough." Dante looked up from the stove, catching my eye. He smiled, understanding without words what I was thinking. About circles closing. About screaming women finally being heard. About how salvation sometimes came in unexpected packages, on city buses, from dangerous men with gentle hands, from little girls brave enough to ask if someone could hear the lady screaming. I walked over to him, sliding my arms around his waist from behind, breathing in the scent of garlic and safety and home. "Thank you," I whispered against his back. "For what?" "For hearing me." His hand covered mine, warm and sure. "Always, tesoro. Always." Outside, the city hummed with its endless energy. Somewhere, another woman was screaming. Somewhere, Someone was choosing to listen. Somewhere, salvation was arriving on the crosstown bus. And in a penthouse fortress in Tribeca, a woman who'd been afraid to scream had found her voice again, held safe in the arms of the monster who'd chosen to be a man instead. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you love this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.